On today, we have a special treat. Today, I will be speaking with a juror from the Bevily trial. Her name and juror number will not be disclosed. She will speak on how she was selected as a juror and some of the unanswered questions that we didn't get to see during the trial and why the jury came to the decision that Takia was not guilty. Thank you so much for coming in, ma'am, to speak with me. I do appreciate you so much for talking with me. So the people will know that you were a juror. Could you elaborate on some of the things that you had to do during jury selection?
Well, I got a thing in the mail, saying that I was, summoned for jury duty. And, they told me what time to be there. And I got to the courthouse that morning, and there was a lot of people. There was a line from the front of the courthouse all the way down, back towards the health department, the old health department. And they ended up having like 189 people to select from. When we got to, when we walked in, we had to give they sent us an application we had to fill out. So we give it, when you walk through, you had to hand them your application, and then they tell you, how to get to the courtroom and just, tell you to go sit down and have a seat. But later on, the state, all the like the prosecutors and the defendants, all that, they had come out to the courtroom and sat down and stuff. And later, they got up, they introduced themselves. Both the attorneys for the defense, introduced themselves. The attorneys for the state, they got up and introduced themselves and kind of explained, who they were and why they were there. They gave us another thing to fill out while we were in the courtroom.
And what was that?
And it was just saying, like who we were, what are, like our names, date of birth, what is your occupation, where do you work, and asked if we had seen or heard of anything about the Takia Bevily trial. Asked if we know anything about Facebook posts. I think there's a thing on Facebook that says I stand with Kia. They wanted to know if we had any acknowledgement of that, if we'd ever heard of it or knew anything about it, and stuff like that.
Okay, well, thank you.
And then I skipped a part too. It's like when everybody had got into the courtroom, they called people's names, and that's how you got your jury number.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for elaborating on that. The first question I do want to ask you is, with the jury selection, what was your experience as a juror from being selected until the end of this trial? Like, what was your experience?
Well, it was the first time I had ever been to anything like that, so I was kind of learning as I was going. I was kind of interested in, who the trial was, what the trial was, or what's going on, or anything. It was a long wait because it was an out of county case, so we was having to do, the only thing with Monroe County, it had to do with Monroe County's location.
Okay.
Everything was Claiborne County, everything, everything.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. Now let's get into the trial, and with the state and the defense, they're doing their opening statements and giving their witnesses and things like that. Do you think the state and defense? Well, let's start with the state. Do you think the state witnesses were credible?
I don't think so.
Can you elaborate? Let's start with James Jefferson.
My opinion about him was he had his mind made up from the get-go of how, of what happened. He said at first that he didn't do anything or say anything because the way Juror looked, that it didn't look like what do you call it? It looked like she just died in her sleep. They wouldn't know what do you call it?
You're saying she just wasn't beaten or anything?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, he said it looked like she, they wouldn't know, like nothing was broke, nothing was out of place, everything looked. It just looked like she'd lay there and went to sleep.
Okay.
And then later on, after, then he said he changed his mind because he said he was there for the autopsy. And he was going by what Dr. LeBlanc had said, and Dr. LeBlanc said it was blunt force trauma to the head.
And so he just,
go ahead. He changed his opinion, 360.
Okay, so what more of James Jefferson's testimony that said that he wasn't credible at all?
I believe he was one after he found out, or after he got the information from Dr. LeBlanc saying it was blunt force trauma.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think he, instead of trying to figure out what really happened to her, he had his mind made up what happened to her.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. So let's move on, and I know that the biological mother, Deidreana Smith, she did testify for the state. So can you elaborate on Deidreana's testimony, and do you think that she was credible?
Well, when she got up there, I didn't think she was as emotional as she thought. I thought she should be, but 5 years has passed. But her attitude changed. Like when the state was was questioning her, she was like answering all the questions, being nice and polite, and stuff. And then when the defense got up, her attitude changed.
Wow, can you elaborate?
She was not being so nice anymore. She was kind of being hateful a little bit. She was kind of, I don't know, it just didn't seem like she was sincere about why she was there, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Like when she started crying, she wasn't crying. She was like batting her eyes. Usually when you're upset about your child, being gone and stuff, even if 5 years have passed, you would show more emotion, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was just like tapping at her eyes, like I would be wiping away tears.
Yes.
But she was just like patting, like.
Okay.
And like I said, and when they cross-examined her, her attitude changed.
Okay. Well, thank you for elaborating on that. And let's talk about Takia. How did you feel Takia conducted herself during her trial? During this trial,
she held up, really good considering the position she was in.
Okay.
Now she had a lot on the line, and it's like, but I mean, she never got out of line. They never had to get on to her about anything. She kept her composure, and stuff. I mean, she had like some facial expressions like, I know he just didn't say that, or I know she just didn't say that, but, but she never was outspoken. She kept, she was like, it's like she's ready to get it over with, but she was scared of her future, and, but she held up really well considering, the position she was in.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so during the trial, they played the hospital footage, and what were your thoughts on that? Like, go ahead.
Well, okay, like the day we got picked at jury duty, the state brought up that they had hospital footage of her actually walking around the hospital. And they was trying to show how good she was walking and stuff. And when we were showed the actual video that they showed us, Juror was not walking. she was being toted by different family members. There's one where one of the family members just constantly walking her up and down the hall, and she was holding her the whole time. And then, like in the lobby, she was standing up, but she was grabbing onto a table. She was not free walking. She wouldn't just walk in without any assistance. But every time that we seen her in that footage, somebody was either holding her in their lap, or they were toting her. She was not walking at all on the video footage.
Okay.
And the state had claimed that she was walking fine, and they said that they had video of her walking, but she was not walking in any of them.
Yes, ma'am. So the next question that I do have for you is, did you guys question the state's motive?
Kinda.
Okay.
Because everybody thinks they were trying to, because she was the stepmother, and that's the reason why they were pointing the fingers at her.
Okay. And do you, in your opinion, do you believe that this was an accidental death that was prosecuted as a homicide?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's get into deliberation. You guys go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And what did the prosecution did not present that persuade you guys to believe that Takia was not guilty?
Well, they didn't have enough evidence. There was not a crime scene. I mean, they only had like 3 pictures of the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, the evidence just wasn't there to say, for that one particular person to say that she done it. I mean, when they showed us the autopsy pictures and stuff, injuries, one of the injuries, the linear fracture, they said was 2 weeks old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was already healing, and she had some contusions in the back of her head, which was not showing as a bruise on her scalp. Mm-hmm. Foul play, that was that word I was trying to think of. The detective didn't see no foul play, so he didn't think, anything of it at the time. I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't have done that. But
that's okay. You can, if you want to continue to talk about, if you want to go back to, him saying that it wasn't any foul play, we can go back to that. Okay. So if you want to go back to James Jefferson's testimony, let's go back. So you said that because of the fact that he said there was no foul play, and then he changed his mind due to going to the medical examiner's office, and he said that, hey, this baby had a cracked skull, and this is blunt force trauma to the head homicide. So
right. Well, they said that the linear fracture, they said that that's not what killed her because it was already healing.
Okay.
And it was like 2 to 4 weeks old.
Okay.
They're saying they're believing what killed her was the contusions to the back of her head.
Okay.
But when we looked at the pictures, those contusions did not look fresh.
Oh.
Because you would think, and then her skull was not bashed in or anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to say that she just got slapped so hard that it made her brain bleed. But there was no brain swelling. And they said, they was talking about the dura, the subarachnoid layer and stuff. They're saying that blood had gotten up under her subarachnoid.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it subarachnoid hemorrhage, and they're saying that's what caused her death. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there wasn't any fresh blood. Mm-hmm. But that one doctor did say if there was fresh blood, it would have got washed away.
Okay.
But as far as the pictures that we've seen, there was no fresh anything. Everything was, it had the contusions in the back of her head had already started clotting up and stuff.
Okay.
So they had done been there a couple of days before, but they were trying to say it happened after they left the hospital.
Okay.
But from what we could see, that's not. There's no way that could be the case because the bruises and the time of the bruises and all this stuff just didn't add up.
Okay. So, thank you. We're gonna continue on with jury deliberation. The next question that I have for you is, how much weight of the exclusion of the autopsy report weigh on you guys' decisions?
We didn't think there was enough there to actually say what they're trying to say that they said. They're saying they're saying it's blunt force trauma, but like I said, it just wasn't there. Her skull wasn't cracked.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe if you had blunt force trauma, you'd have some kind of damage to your skull.
Right.
And she didn't have anything like that.
Okay. So the next thing is, when you guys went in, and I know you guys did a vote first, who thought she was guilty and who thought she was not guilty.
Well, we went in.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we come in and we was like, well, y'all, this is what this is what I'm thinking now, and this is why I think this.
Mm-hmm. I hate to interrupt you. So, how many people felt in the beginning that she was guilty, and how many people felt that she was not guilty?
11 not guilty and 1 unsure.
Wow.
And then, she said, but if y'all don't mind, can I take a little longer? And we said, take all the time you want. We was fine. Because, it was a very important decision, we was all having to make.
Right.
But, and then after we all got to talking about, well, this person brought this up. Well, this could have, instead of this happening like this could have happened like that. And then, like during the questioning and stuff, they were saying that she never pulled at her ears, she never complained of a headache and stuff. But after we went back and looked at some pictures, she was actually holding her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to have been taken, right around the time, right before she died.
Mm-hmm.
So she was holding her ear in some pictures and stuff, and like I said, the state said that she didn't do that.
Okay.
But when we went back, because they give us all the state evidence and stuff,
mm-hmm.
We had to write it down and stuff. They brought all that stuff and let us go through the pictures. We watched the hospital footage again.
Okay.
And,
Did you guys watch the interrogation video again?
Not really.
Okay.
Because we pretty much got the gist of it because we had to watch it, during the trial.
Right. Okay. So just watching the hospital, y'all went back and watched the hospital footage when y'all deliberated? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what else was weighing on you guys' decision, or the unsure person decision?
She just having that kind of faith in your hands, somebody else's faith, and she just wanted to make sure,
right,
she was making the right decisions because she didn't want to send a guilty person free, but she didn't want an innocent person, to go to jail. So she wanted to make sure that what she
right.
was. And so, but she made her own decision. Didn't nobody pressure her or anything because we told her to take the time, look what you need to look, go right ahead. So we just all went back to talking while she was doing her studying and stuff. What she was trying to figure out.
Right. So basically, everyone went in thinking that she was not guilty, except for one person.
Yeah, she was unsure.
Okay. So now, when you guys came back with the not guilty verdict, what was the reaction in the courtroom?
Well, at first, Tia was like, "What?" And she had like a surprised look on her face, and like. And then all of a sudden, she started squalling, and you could tell it was legit. She was sincere about it, it just hit her so fast and so hard. She just started crying. Bless her heart. She had more people against her there than she did for her. And plus me, us not knowing who they were, I didn't really know who was for who.
Right. So well, the people that were against her, like, what was everyone's reaction besides hers? Like, there's a lot of people upset.
Like, they just sat there like, what? Mm-hmm. I mean, but the judge made it clear before we got out there, to keep your composure and stuff, because there was a lot of police in there that day.
Okay. They
brought in extra security and stuff.
Wow.
They were all lined up around the courtroom and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
This was I'm going to be honest, this was a very emotional case.
It was.
So, now that you have sat on this trial and see how the justice system works, how do you feel now? How do you feel about our justice system now?
That there can be hope for it.
Okay.
Because I've seen how it can work. I've seen it both ways.
Okay.
And it's like there is hope, for people out there, because they will make you feel like you were the worst person in the world when you yourself hasn't done anything wrong.
Right.
But they will make you feel like you're dirt, and.
Okay. Well, this is before we end this trial, and because I definitely want to ask you like 2 or 3 more questions. So,
okay.
What would you say to the prosecution and how they presented their case, and what would you say to the prosecution at this point?
Well, that's a good one. Let's see. I don't know. I had to think about that one.
Go ahead. Take all the time you need. Like how they conducted themselves in the courtroom, how they presented the evidence to you guys, how all that. Take that all in.
Well, it's like they kept showing us the same thing over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
They kept repeating like the same. There's no telling how many times we see the same pictures over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They had a job to do, and which I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to prove that this one person done it instead of trying to figure out what really happened to her. They just point their fingers at this one person, say, "You did this." Just because these people said they didn't do it, they're pointing the fingers at you, and you done it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think they did it real good. But, real good investigation. I mean, they didn't present it in a way to make us. It's like they would say one thing and show us something else.
So,
and like I said, there was a lot of things that we could have heard and learned, like the stuff that the defense had brought up, stuff. The state would shut it down; they wouldn't let them talk about it.
Okay.
Instead of getting to the bottom of trying to find out what really happened to Juror, they just pointed fingers and say, "Well, you did this, and we're going to prove it," and they just didn't do a very good job of proving it.
Okay. So, what is your opinion when it comes to the defense and Takia's representation?
I believe that they did believe she was innocent. They came in fighting from day one. They said that they were going to prove, that she didn't do it, and like they presented themselves well. They, when they cross-examined the people on the state, they were as nice as they could be to them, they and stuff, and they didn't try to get out of line with them.
Okay.
They done a real good job as far as representing her and, and treating the other people, like it should be treated.
Okay. So, in your all around experience with this trial, and what was the most alarming thing in this trial?
I don't know. Okay, right. Okay, like what do you say? It's
like what kind of like set your bells off? Like, hey, like kind of had you confused, or like with the baby being in the closet, did that alarm you? Did the mentioning? Go ahead.
That didn't alarm me because that's part of the okay. It didn't alarm me because they said where the dry's bed was at, it was connected to their master bedroom where they slept.
Okay.
And she would actually, when they would leave their bedroom to go to the kitchen, they could actually walk through where Juror was sleeping and go on to the kitchen. But see, that come to find out that there was supposed to be a door there that was connecting the walkway through thing to their bedroom. And Mr. Jefferson never brought that up. The door, apparently the door was closed.
Okay. So,
like I said, there was only 3 pictures. I mean, he didn't take a picture. If it was a closet, he didn't take a picture of it saying it was a closet. You know what I'm saying? He didn't get the whole. I guess the whole picture is what you'd say because the picture was Dry laying in the bed. He got 2 pictures of those and a picture in another room. That was it.
Okay. We
didn't have no pictures to see if it was a closet or not. But when they was interrogated at the sheriff's department, they said that they had to walk through.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna ask you, because I know that maybe when the transcript comes out, I'll ask you some more. I'll get more into. Hopefully, you'll come back and talk to me a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
If you had any advice for Takia on today, what would you say?
To keep her chin up and to keep looking up to God for her guidance and her wisdom.
Okay.
It's going to be okay. She's got a lot to put behind her, but just to keep moving on and thanking God for what she has and what He's been through with her, and just to keep on keeping on.
All right. Well, y'all, that's what we have on today. I would like to thank you for coming in and having this conversation with me. I truly do appreciate it, and we appreciate you for answering these questions that have been unanswered for people that wanted to know. So make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification bell.